What's up, everybody? Welcome back. This sounds about right. I'm your boy Nibs520, as always. With me today is a special edition. I got my boy Jack Kelly with me, my kitchen counter cohort. He's in here with me because, with the other fellas, we got some technical difficulties going on. But don't worry, KC and Uncle Nate will be back next week. Jack, what's good, baby? How you doing, man?
What's good, bro? I'm good. We've been doing our thing in the boxing world, and once you talk about having a football thing, I said I'd come on. So I've been a boxing fan for a few years, but a football fan long before I've been a boxing fan. So I figured I'd come up and chop it up with you 100%.
Oh, well, we experts at all
Hmm.
things. The
Yes, sir.
we already the authority in all things boxing. I
Hmm.
mean, you know what I'm saying. It is what it is. You're gonna come in on here. We're gonna talk some shit about
Hmm.
football. And the beautiful thing about it is that you ain't got to be right, baby. You can just get in here,
Hmm.
let them have it. You know what I'm saying. If they don't like it, fuck
Yeah.
them. So today, man, we want to talk about all things football. We want to talk about the college football playoff, a little bit about pretty much just how that went down, the teams that made it. How do you see it going forward? And then we'll get into some NFL today, folks. We're going to talk about you know really the playoffs and how it's turned out. The do's and the don'ts, the teams that biggest surprises, biggest losers, etc., etc. We'll get into all that. Before we get into our opinions, we'll give you a real quick Reader's Digest version of the college football playoff. So for anybody who's either under a rock or just doesn't really follow the rules as much, there's a whole bunch of people who watch football don't really know how the shit works. So ultimately, the college football playoff, the last couple of years, it took over for the BCS, which was using computers and all that other shit. The college football playoff is 13 people committed, right? What they do is they rank the top 25 teams throughout the year. Then at the end of the year, they're in control over not only the college football playoff itself, but the New Year's Six bowl games. For those who aren't really familiar with those bowl games, it's the Rose Bowl, Sugar Bowl, Cotton Bowl, Orange Bowl, Fiesta Bowl, and the Peach Bowl. Those are basically the the longest running bowl games in college football history for most of the people who've been watching it as a sport. They're not only in control over the playoff, but those bowls themselves being played individually and getting doled out. So at the end of the year, their job is to find the most competitive four teams that they can put into a playoff. Then we get a champion, right? So this year there was some shit. This year we ran into a whole bunch of people being mad because one team went undefeated, didn't make it. Two teams that took some L's, jumped them. We got two teams in the playoff championship that hadn't been there. Jack, what's your opinion on the college football situation? One, how the teams that did make it. Do you think they were the ones who deserved it? And how do you think it played out, bro?
So it's interesting when people always talk about these kind of things. There's always, I guess, the teams that deserve to be in versus what are the best four teams. I think you've seen that they've started to move towards just the best four teams. Because Florida State, I mean, when they had Jordan Travis, I think they were a legit team. If Jordan Travis had stayed healthy the full year, I think they would have made it, and they would have rightfully made it. But after he got hurt, they were just a whole different team. I mean, they're still winning games, but not winning games the way they were earlier on in the year. So I think that the right four teams probably did make it. I think that you had Washington and Michigan were no brainers because they were undefeated with all their guys healthy. They both had big wins. Then Alabama and Texas, I think both deserve it. The one team that I think even was a tough one to leave out was Georgia. I think that had they been in, I think they might have still been the best team in the country. But for them, they got in a tough spot because they lost to Bama, but Bama also lost to Texas. So I think you probably had to put Texas in just because of that, even if I thought Georgia was probably the better team. But hey, I got no complaints. I thought that they did it the right way. It sucks for Florida State. If I was a Florida State player or a fan, I would feel like they deserve to be in. But at the end of the day, I think the committee more went towards the best four teams, and I think that that's what they have for the most part.
So that everybody who's watching understands what he's talking about is typically you got your five power conferences, right? Which was the Pac, which was the Pac-12, which is now the Pac-2. Yeah, the Big 12, the SEC, the ACC, and the Big 10, right? Usually, if you went undefeated and won your conference, you were pretty much a shoe in, unless unless all five of those guys went undefeated, which rarely ever happens, right? So Florida State, Michigan, Washington, they seemed on paper as no brainers because they all went undefeated and won their conference championships. However, like he's saying, Jordan Travis, who was a Heisman Trophy candidate, goes down against Northern Alabama, gets a gruesome leg injury. He's out of there. Florida State wins their last couple of games, including the North Alabama game. They win against Florida, an SEC team, and they win their conference championship 16-6. So, a team who was putting 50, 60 points on squads pretty much the whole year squeaks out their last two wins. But hey, they did what they had to do. They won out, went undefeated, won their conference championship. But you got Alabama, who had one loss, like you said, to Texas earlier in the year. Sometimes it's not always when you lose, it's how you lose or when that happens, right? So, they come back, they beat Georgia, who was basically the number one team in the country all year, and they beat them. So it's kind of like a no-brainer. Hey, we just beat the number one team. Like, how can you not leave us out? Plus, we're Alabama, and it's the SEC. Well, then Texas is going, well, hold on, wait a minute. We beat Alabama, and we won our conference championship. Shouldn't we be in there? Florida State's like, well, shit, we went undefeated, motherfucker. Like, but most people believe because of Jordan Travis and Jordan Travis's injury alone, Florida State doesn't get in. My question to you would be this, right? If Jordan Travis is healthy, is Florida State necessarily a shoe-in to be in the college football playoff this year? A lot of people think they still get jumped by Texas and Alabama.
It would have been interesting. I think you would have had to have seen how the season played out the rest of the year. To me, I think that as long as they had won the games the way they were winning before, and they had some close games. I'm a New England guy, so I saw the BC game. Even when Travis was playing, they barely won that game. But I think if Travis is playing, if he would have been a finalist for the Heisman, I don't think you could keep them out if they were undefeated. One thing I want to ask you is, what I want to see from the committee still is consistency. So you leave Florida State out. Okay, I'm cool with that. But then Florida State was ranked number 5 and Georgia was ranked number 6. So you're saying that Florida State on the eye test isn't good enough to be in the top 4, which I'm cool with. But they can't tell me that they think Florida State would have beat Georgia. So that's what I don't understand. If you want to rank it as like a power ranking, that's cool for me to do. If that's why you're leaving Florida State out, I'm cool with that. But do we think Florida State without Jordan Travis would have beaten Georgia or Oregon or an Ohio State? That's where the ranking is tough because if you're going to have Florida State out, they should probably be like that 7, 8, 9 range more than the 5 spots. So that's what I just want the consistency from the committee. We don't know. It's not really like a formula, like you said, the BCS. It's changed now. It's a bunch of different people's opinions, and I just want to know exactly what they're looking for because leaving them out, I'm cool with, but then having them as the best team out, we saw what happened in the Orange Bowl. I know a lot of people sat for Florida State too, but we know Georgia's better than Florida State. That's what I'm just still confused by, and I hope that maybe with the 12-team playoff we get more clarity with that.
So see, here's where I'm at with that. And now that we kind of got the history lesson out of the way, I'm more of a traditionalist than most people, and I believe that if you win your games and you win your conference, you should have been in there. The way I look at it was this: before the championship week, you had Georgia, Michigan. I think Washington was third. Florida State was fourth before championship week, right? Jordan Travis was not in the Florida game. Now Tate Rodemaker, who was their backup, he did well, but he's still not Jordan Travis, right? I think they'd have done a lot better in the championship game had they had him. He goes out. Now, mind you, they're down to their third string quarterback. I'm gonna tell people this really, really quickly. You take any of the teams in the top 10 of the college football playoff, give them their third string quarterback, and tell them to win their conference championship. I think Florida State's probably the only one who was be able to pull it off because they had an NFL defense, basically. But because I'm gonna tell you right now, Alabama is not beating Georgia in the SEC title game with their third string quarterback. It's just not happening. But Georgia loses, so most people would think automatically, right? You take the teams that are still undefeated, Michigan, Washington, Florida State, move them up a spot. That doesn't happen. Florida State still stays number 4. So going into championship week, they're still fourth. So you're telling, so you, like you said, right? They're taking that into consideration. They're already taking into consideration they have their number 3 quarterback going into championship week. You still have them ranked fourth because they haven't lost. Then I think this is what this, and this is just me. I don't think they expected them to win. So I think they expected Georgia to win or beat Alabama, and then not to even have to have this conversation, right? Or Florida State to lose because they're, hey, they're down to their third string quarterback and they're not going to win anyway. Florida State winning threw everything off because now it's like, well, shit, they fucking did it. They went undefeated. Now what do we do, right? And that was the question. I think most people are going to understand. Texas was in, right? Like Texas was in because they beat Alabama. The question was, do we put in Alabama because they beat Georgia, or do we put in Florida State because they went undefeated? And it was a hard question for most people because there's another thing which came into play, and Kirby Smart alluded to this after the game, in which they thoroughly annihilated Florida State. Um, he said, "Look, we have to make a decision on what we want college football to be. You took a team who beat all the odds. They lost their top 2 quarterbacks, still went undefeated, won their conference against a top 25 team, and now you're telling them, well, because one player's gone, you're not good enough. What does that tell all the other guys, right? And you saw what happened. 30, not 3, not 10, 30 of their scholarship players either elected to go into the draft or into the transfer portal. I want to say it was like 22 guys decided to go to the draft, 8 decided to hit the portal. You have 30 players, pretty much their entire starting offense and defense decided to dip, right? What do you expect to happen when they play Georgia the next time out? And to your point, did you expect them to stay and play in a game that, you know what I mean, none of them wanted to play in the first place? I'm here to tell you, if they get in, those 30 guys are still there because they're like, well, we still got a shot. You know what I mean? Yeah, we got our backup quarterback, but we got a shot to make it to the ship. Now, with the transfer portal, how do you feel about that? Because the transfer portal right now, as it stands, is open during bowl season, which I kind of feel is kind of fucked up in the regular season too. Do you think if the transfer portal wasn't an option until after all the bowl games have been played, do you think that have made or swayed any of the guys from playing in that game for Florida State?
I think it maybe could have, and even pre-show we were talking. That's why I'm still excited for the 12-team playoff because I think it eliminates a lot of those concerns because you have that many more games that mean something. Florida State would have been in it, even if they're 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, whatever seed they are, they would have been in those playoffs. And even being someone, I played football in high school, I played football in college too, and just I feel for Florida State because if you're on those teams, yeah, your quarterback goes down. But as you said, if you're still winning, you're thinking, damn right, we got to be in this thing. We won all of our games. We did what we're supposed to do. So, from that perspective, being a player or even being someone, being a fan of a certain team, if I was a Florida State fan, I would agree with that 100%. And for those reasons, I still thought that they would have probably been in the playoffs. Turns out that they weren't, but I see that argument all the way. As far as the transfer portal, everything is so different now with the NIL, the money that these guys get now too, just the whole, and it's kind of, I don't, like I said to pre-show also, I don't blame any of these guys for skipping out these bowl games. If any of us were in these spots or advising anybody in those spots, you're damn right you're going to skip those bowl games. You're not going to mess up. We've seen guys before, Willis McGahee back in the day, or other guys, Matt Corral from Ole Miss, really hurt themselves and ruin their draft stock in a bowl game. That's the last thing you want to see these guys do. I know Christian McCaffrey was the first one who kind of did it as more recently, and then you've started to see more guys do it. But I think that if those games matter, you'll see those guys play, and I think that it's just a tough one.
Yeah, I mean, look, bro, the NIL is I have a love hate relationship with it, right? Because I kind of feel like the NIL makes it more difficult for coaches at the college level to be able to, I wouldn't say control, but keep their guys in line, right? Because now these guys are coming into the college football. There's some of them dudes are millionaires. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? Some of these dudes are making a couple $1 million off of these NIL deals, and now they're like, "Well, fuck you. I don't need to listen to you. I can just go."
Mm-hmm.
And then they've got the transfer portal. So if they don't like the way a coach coaches, if a coach is more old school, which um, I was watching Coach Prime on I think it is Prime TV. Yeah, so Coach Prime on Prime TV. If you don't have it, go check it out. Um, he was saying, yeah, look, these players aren't faithful to girlfriends. You expect them to be faithful to a football team, and that's crazy because we both came up playing football, and for us it was never really about yeah, getting individual stats, getting accolades and like that is cool. But once you on the squad, that's your squad. You ride with your squad till the wheels fall off. You know what I mean? So for me, when I saw all those guys dip out on Florida State, I was like, damn. Like I hate to see it, but like you said, I completely understand, and I have no problem with them doing it because they're securing their future. They're securing their bag, right? Like, if let's take one of the guys, Jared Verse. He's slated to be a top 5 draft pick, right? He's like, well, shit. If I keep playing and get hurt, I could fuck around and fuck up my draft status. You know what I mean? So, can you be mad at a dude for saying, "Yeah, fuck it, I'm out of here"? I got to protect my future earnings. You know what I mean? Now, again, if that CFP playoff would have been on the line, I'm 100% sure Jared Verse and the rest of them guys would have been up there talking about, oh, yeah, we about to, you kidding me? Um, so there's that. I think we both agree, even though I'm a Florida State fan, it did hurt me to see me not to see them get in. But I do think they did get it right that the 4 best teams were selected. Now, as far as how those games played out, do you, did it play out the way you expected it to? Like as a fan of football, did it play out the way you thought it was going to work out?
It definitely kind of did. The last thing I want to bring up for the transfer portal too, because I think you'll like this point, is the one thing I do like about it is we see coaches flip flop all the time from different schools. A coach will do good for a few years, and then rightfully so, they'll level up to their job. Well, you get recruited. I was recruited at a much smaller Division III level, but you grow attachments to certain coaches, and you used to see that when a coach used to leave. To me, it never used to be fair where a coach can leave and just go to another school, but the players would have to leave, but they'd have to sit for a year. So I think that is the one good thing. It does ruin the structure, and I think that kind of could be a good thing because like you're not going to see as many super teams with the NIL because the money's all spread out, and it gives these players chances. Because if you build a relationship with the coach, if that coach leaves and is able to coach somewhere else next year, I think you should be able to play next year also. So I want to just throw that out there.
I mean, we see that now. Granted, they're his kids, but we saw that with Dion. Going back to Coach Prime. He's at Jackson State. That's a black college. You know what I mean? They were getting no love before he showed up. Next thing you know, they're all over TV, right? He took them. They were. I think they were absolutely horrible before he showed up. He gets them on a national stage. They're winning games. I think they went to the championship game back to back years. I think they lost both times, if I'm not mistaken. But they showed out, right? Shooter showed he could be a D1 talent. Came to Colorado, right? He leveled up because let's face it, coming from Jackson State to Colorado was a big jump, and he showed that even though they went 4-8, I mean they were 1-11 before he showed up. So he improved them by 3 wins in one season. That's huge, bro. A lot of people don't understand 4-8 is a big win for Colorado, considering where they came from. And I do think that when you see him and his sons coming in, and Travis Hunter, who's like a son to him, and then he takes pretty much all the good players from Jackson State. I kind of feel like that ruins the commitment these kids made. Because now what like you said, it's more of a commitment to the coach than it is the university. It's like, hey, if my coach leaves, I'm out of here. We saw with Caleb Williams, Oklahoma to USC. The coach at U of A, University of Arizona, he just recently left. A lot of people were expecting the wide receiver and quarterback that he, brought on. They went 10-3, which is huge for them because they were sorry as hell. Beat Oklahoma, I think, in one of those Super Six. The Fiesta, was it the Fiesta Bowl? I think, or is it the Alamo Bowl? One of them. But they beat Oklahoma. Now he goes to UW because that guy's moving on, to Alabama, and you expect to see those guys leave and with them, right? Are you cool with that? Like, is that something where you're like, hey man, yeah, fuck it.
For me, I am cool with it, honestly. I'm always pro player at a lot of these things, whether it's NBA or NFL, because you only have a short window. So I think you should be able to capitalize as much as you can during that window. Just going back to, I think if a coach is able to leave somewhere and then coach the next year at a certain place, I think a player should be able to do the same thing. Whether they follow that coach or even go somewhere else, I've always find it funny. Like, let's say even that coach, he goes from Arizona to Washington. But 10, 15 years ago, if his players would have tried to have transferred to another school, they would have had to have sat a year. He doesn't have to sit a year. He can go and he can coach right away. And the players who have
Right.
the coach will be able to coach for a long time. The players only have 4.5 years if you get a transfer year. You could always get hurt. Any of these things can happen. So I'm all for these guys just being able to capitalize on whatever they can. I think it's an adjustment to the sport. Overall, I think it's better though because I think these guys are just getting better opportunities, and I think just more power to them.
I'm not a fan of it, but I know it's the world we live in, right? I know it's the world we live in, and I get the part of, yeah. I mean, the you go. Let's be real clear. I do think players, especially young adult players, right? That's another thing too. People have to remember these college football players. We're talking about 17, 18, 19, 20. Some of them are damn near 25. But you got anywhere between 17 to 25-year olds. These are young, very young adults um, playing a professional sport. Essentially, is what it comes down to, right? And I do think there is a connection to the coach. You go there because, hey, I want to go play for that guy. It's like back in the day, Bobby Bowden. If you went to Florida State, you didn't go to Florida State. Well, I mean, maybe for the girls. I mean, but you went to Florida State because of Bobby Bowden. You went to Penn State for Bobby. It's for Petrino. You or Paterno. You go there for those guys, right? What was his name to do for Notre Dame? Luke Holtz.
Lou Holtz,
You
yep.
Yeah, you went there because it was Lou Holtz. You didn't go there. I mean, yeah, it's Notre Dame, but you went there because Lou Holtz was the coach, right? They had a couple of thin years, so I get that. Then for me, where it kind of gets messy is now they've extended these eligibility years. You got some cats been playing college football 7, 8 years, Jack. But I don't know, man. I think there should be a cap on how many extensions you can get. I've seen just what was it? The kid from Oklahoma State, he got an extra seventh year. The fuck? What you doing in college football for 7 years, bro?
I think the one thing with that is I think the further we get away from COVID, the easier it's going to be to separate. Because back during that time, is everybody got an extra year even if they played.
Yeah.
So because we've seen guys like Case Keenum when he was at Houston, I remember he got a 6th year because he got hurt. But now, as you said,
Mm-hmm.
those the 5th years turn into 6 years, and the 6 years now turn into 7th year. So I think that the further away you get from COVID, I think some of that will start to even itself out. But even with the transfers, that's why I'm even not opposed to these guys playing right away because that'll count your clock right away too. So you're not sitting a year and then waiting. You're playing just once your clock start going. If you go from one place to another place, you're playing right away. Well, you're using up that eligibility, and I think we're going to get back more towards guys just using those 4 or 5 years. I think that's more of kind of just the exception with COVID and just with a few injuries and stuff like that. But I'm hoping it is crazy though. You'll see guys 6, 7, even a basketball player got his 7th year, and it's crazy because you never heard stuff like that before.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I think that I mean, and then you look at the college football playoff this year. Kind of tying that back into that, right? I mean, you look at Michael Penix. He started off at Indiana, comes over to Washington. It not only changes his career, but it changes Washington football. That him transferring changed a lot of things for a lot of people, right? Not just himself. Um, you look at the teams that didn't, that made it to the playoff but didn't win. Alabama gets transfers all the time. You know, I think it was Texas. Was the Arch Manning? They're talking about he's going to be getting out of there because Ewers is coming back, right?
Mm-hmm.
There were a lot. There's a lot of talent on these college rosters that just aren't getting their opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
Jordan Travis, he transferred from Louisville, went and got on to Florida State. I hope the best for him, and hopefully he recovers to have a good NFL career. But you look at a lot of these guys, and it changes their money. If Penix would have had to stay at Indiana, we wouldn't even be talking about that guy. Let's be real. Indiana football is just not on the same level as Washington. I'd be honest with you. I thought Alabama had a chance to beat Michigan. Um, I knew Washington was going to beat Texas. I didn't know it was going to be that close. But good games until I knew once though Michigan got to Washington, it was going to be bad business. They're hitting on all levels. Now that the college football playoff is over, drafts.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you think who do you think should be number one based off of what you saw this past year?
Well, so that's an interesting question. I mean, Chicago's got the number one pick right now. Depends which way you want to go. I think that because I still like Justin Fields a lot for you guys though too. So it's interesting. For
Right.
me, this isn't what they would do. For me, I would maybe look to trade that pick, and you could
Mm-hmm.
get two picks later on. If you get Marvin Harrison and you get a tackle with Justin Fields, then you're in business. You get Caleb Williams, who I think is probably will be the number one pick. Well, you're getting just Caleb Williams. You're not able to get him another receiver, another tackle, another pick later on, stuff like that. So I think Caleb
But
Williams
we have the
is.
number 9 pick.
Yeah,
We
that's
got the
true.
number nine.
Number nine pick. Now, that's a good point. That's right. From that, you guys made out great in that Panthers trade, but I think Caleb Williams is going to be the number one pick. But to me, the guy who I know is going to be a Pro Bowler is Marvin Harrison. So, like, I'm a Patriots fan. We have the third pick. I would love for us to take Marvin Harrison because I think you can get a quarterback later on, maybe a Penix, a Bo Nix, somebody like that. But I think a Marvin Harrison, a receiver like that, you're more sure of those guys. Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson. When those guys are drafted that high, you know that they're going to be elite. The quarterbacks, you think you know, and I think Caleb Williams should be pretty good. But how many times have we thought a quarterback was going to be really good and it didn't pan out that way? So Caleb will probably be the number one pick. I think Marvin Harrison is the sure thing of being if who's going to for sure be elite as soon as possible.
Mhm.
I'd say it's got to be him.
So here's what I think, and I do think that it ultimately comes down to who is picking number one because I feel like if the Bears keep the number one pick, I think they're taking Caleb Williams, and I don't think that's the right pick, right? I think they should trade down. I think they should find somebody who really does want Caleb Williams because if I'm being 100% honest with you, I don't think Caleb Williams should be the number one pick. I don't have him as my best quarterback, even in college football. You know what I'm saying? I think J.J. McCarthy is better than he is. If for my money, for the NFL level, right? College football, NFL, two totally different things. Everybody knows that. I think when you look at what he brings to the table, I think Jaden Daniels could be a better fit for the Bears than Caleb Williams is. When you look at what he does, right? Everybody, he's what everybody wanted Justin Fields to be already. You know what I'm saying? But I think you're right. I think if you take a quarterback number one, my thing is this: you if you're the Bears, you then are telling the team, "Hey, look, it's going to be a couple more years again before we're a winning team, unless you really think Caleb Williams can come in and be better than what Justin Fields is right now. So for my money, if I were the Bears, maybe you get one of those teams like New England, maybe the Chargers. They're like, hey, we want to, or New York, that who might want a quarterback number one. Might be willing to trade with you. Take that down. I mean, you already got the number 9. So you look at it like this. At number 9, you can still get a really good quarterback if the guy that you want isn't there. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, I think you can get a JJ McCarthy in the second round. For I think he's going to be there. He's learning from guess who? The quarterback whisperer and Jim Harbaugh, right? So you kind of know he's going to have a decent career. Plus, Michigan turns out fucking quarterbacks, like water. So and let's face it, the USC quarterbacks ain't really done that well in the NFL. So I think it does depend on who is actually picking. But if I was the Bears, I would not take Caleb Williams either way. It would, for me, it's either if you stick with the number 1, take Marvin Harrison because he's the best player, in the draft. I'm not mad at Odunze either. The dude from Washington, that boy is a beast, man. I mean, he been punking kids all, or what's the
Malik Neighbors
Jack?
from LSU is a good receiver too. Malik Neighbors from LSU.
Jack, you good with names? What's the tackle from Notre Dame? I don't
Joe
know his name.
Alt. Joe Alt. I think so, yeah. And then the tackle,
That,
I forget his name. The tackle from Penn State is pretty good too. So those two guys are both really good.
yeah.
I think number
Um,
number 9 could be one of those guys for you.
I'm thinking you got. I think you got to. I like the Joe Alt dude. He got
hmm
some mean in him. But you right, that dude from Penn State. I seen. Um, he was on one of the draft boards, and I had to look him up, and I was like, okay, all right, big fella.
Yeah.
So I mean, you couldn't go wrong with either one of those guys. You know what I mean? But I would take Marvin Harrison one and take one of those tackles because I don't think both of them are going to be there at 9, but I think we can get one at 9. That's what I would do, me personally, if
Yeah.
I was the Bears.
I think it comes down for you guys too. Like, what is the trade value for Justin Fields? Because I still like Justin Fields. I think in the right situation, he can win. That's my big thing is situations for these quarterbacks. A guy like Bryce Young, do I think is he as good as C.J. Stroud? Probably not. But I don't think Bryce Young is terrible either. I think when you have the worst graded offensive line and your receivers get the least amount of separation in the NFL, basically any quarterback's going to look bad. So I think it all depends on what situation you're in. If Justin Fields, one of those guys, if he's set up to win in a good situation, I think he'd be good. It depends on if Atlanta really wants him. Is Atlanta going to give a second round pick or would Atlanta even give their first round pick? Then I think you might wonder if they believe in Justin Fields enough to give up a first round pick. I think Chicago might take that. So I think it all depends on that too. It's interesting. Even for my Patriots, I mean, the Caleb Williams and those guys are good, but I would rather get, like I said, a Harrison. I think you want to build pieces for these quarterbacks. Even C.J. Stroud's one of those only guys recently who went into a team with just the weapons they had and made it happen. Most guys aren't going to be able to do that. As good as Peyton Manning was, as good as all these number 1 picks are, it takes time. So I think that more nowadays than ever, you rush quarterbacks to be good. They don't have the time. 15, 20, 25 years ago, Justin Fields would have been the Bears quarterback for 15 years. They would have seen enough and they'd say, okay, we're going to build around him. Teams just don't have, coaches get fired earlier, coordinators get fired earlier. So these players are under 2, 3, 4 offensive coordinators and they're never going to have the continuity in that to succeed. But I think in the right situation, Justin Fields definitely could. And I'm hoping for you guys it's in Chicago.
Let me throw this out there at you. Okay, you're the Chicago Bears. You have 2 top 10 picks again in the draft, right? If you're sold on Justin Fields, right? You got DJ Moore, you got Maloney, who's serviceable, right? You got some guys. What's to stop Chicago from getting 2 tackles, right? Like if I'm the Bears, you can trade back, like you said. If the Atlanta Falcons are like, hey man, we'll give you, we want the number 1 pick, right? We'll give you our number 1 this year. They'll get a boatload of number 1s essentially is what they'll get for trading this year. Or you look at the Tennessee Titans. They could be in the market to get a quarterback. The Giants, I mean, shit, their quarterback can't play for shit. There are a lot of teams, and no, even the Patriots. The Patriots they're picking number 3.
Oh, trust me,
Hey,
we're
we
in the
want
market. Trust me, we're in the market for a quarterback without a doubt.
right. So if you're saying, okay, if the Patriots come to you and say, hey, we'll sell the house, to get number 1, okay, I can pick number 3 and 9, right? And I'm going to get a number 1 next year, right? And probably a couple of second round guys. What's to stop you from saying, okay, let's take 2 tackles, keep Justin Fields, and get a wide receiver in the second round? Because when you look at the draft this year, and I think it's most years, there are a lot of really good wide receivers and defensive backs, and I think you can say that every year, right? So what's to stop? But lifelong tackles, you got to get those in the first. You got to get those in the first 15. You know what I'm saying? If you can get 2, come on, Jack. What do you think about that? This is just me. This is what I would do.
Man, I think that would be perfect. I already told you that I'm someone who's a believer in building a system for a quarterback. Unless you're Patrick Mahomes or a few of those other guys, they are the system, but you need a system. Part of why we'll talk about NFL later. Part of why I think Brock Purdy looks so good right now is he's a good quarterback. I think a lot of other quarterbacks would do just as good as he is, if not better, in that exact situation. We saw Jimmy G look pretty good for the 49ers. He turned around and he got benched for the Raiders his first year. So it's so much of it is dependent on the situation you're in. Who's your offensive coordinator? What's your line like? What are your weapons like? So, hey, if you could have a chance to get 2 of those tackles like that, I would take it. Like you said, with the 7-on-7s and all these things that you do now year round, receivers and DBs are going to be around. Shit, Puka Nacua was just drafted in the 5th round last year, and he just had 200 yards in a playoff game. So I think that you could find receivers later on. I mean, Marvin Harrison would be the big one to take. But if you ever get a chance to get 2 top tackles like that, I don't see why you wouldn't do it, especially when you're trying to, like you said, build those blocks for a guy like Justin Fields. So if you get him 2 tackles, he's going to look pretty damn good there just next year. I think he would.
And then here's the thing, too, right? Because I think Chicago has 2 picks in the second round as well. I'm trying to tell you, I don't know why people aren't putting him high up on their board. JJ McCarthy, dudes like JJ McCarthy, Michael Penix, I think even because I think he took a hit in with the way the college the CFP title game went. Um, I think Jaden Daniels will go in the first round. I still think I think he'll go later in the first round. But I think there's going to be 3 quarterbacks drafted in the first round, maybe even 4. But I think a guy like Michael Penix, JJ McCarthy, like you said, Bo Nix, right? They're still going to be there day 2. You know what I'm saying? So it's not like you can't. And Bo Nix can sling that rock, boy. I mean, that dude, and he's another guy who benefited from the extra eligibility, right? So he's had time to learn from NFL system guys. Hey, so even if you want to get a guy to be Justin Fields' backup in case some shit runs awry, you can still get one. Are you going to be able to get a Marvin Harrison? I think you want to get a Marvin Harrison, but do you do you want to protect? Because let's face it, one thing the Bears can do is run the ball. So if you get 2 stud linemen, I mean, it'll be unfair the amount of running they'd be able to do all over teams. And then I think you can get a really good wide receiver. You won't get Marvin, but you can get a Marvin B. You know what I mean? So that's where I would be. But let's play devil's advocate here. Let's say New England does trade up. Are they taking Caleb Williams or Drake May?
I think you'd take Caleb. I like Drake May too. It's funny though, because I'm not really 100% sold on either guy. I do like them
Or
both.
Jaden Daniels? Like I heard,
Mhm.
I've heard that the New England's been having conversations with Jaden Daniels people.
Yeah, I
So
could see. I'll be interested to see too who because Gerard Mayo just got announced as our head coach, which I like that hiring too. I think that former players have been doing pretty good. You saw Dan Campbell Vrabel, even though he just got canned, was doing pretty good. D'Amico Ryans is doing a hell of a job in Houston. So I think Mayo has that IQ level and just the ability to lead a locker room. So I like that. I'll be interested to see. To me, it comes down to who they hire as their offensive coordinator. Whoever that is, whatever their play style is, could lead into the pick. But I think if you do trade up, I'd assume it probably would be Caleb Williams over Drake May. I don't mind Drake May. I think he might be more consistent. He's a good thrower. I think Caleb has that X factor of when plays break down. And put it this way, New England ain't the perfect situation to go into next year. We don't have the great line. We don't have the great weapons. So I think having a guy like Caleb, even though it would probably be a rough year for anybody who we draft if we traded up because we lose assets too. But I'd want a guy who can kind of do things on the fly and improvise because I think that's something that they would need. As good as like a JJ McCarthy is, I'm not sure where he fits in the NFL because I think if he goes to like if he was to go to a place like the 49ers, which he's not going to because they have Purdy, but I think he could look pretty good. I think a guy like Penix is really good. I like Penix even over McCarthy just because even though I talk about the situations in the title game, JJ McCarthy's team won over Michael Penix's team. But I think if you were to swap those two guys, and Penix was playing with the Michigan team with Blake Corum in that run game with those receivers too, I think he would have looked pretty damn good. And I think JJ McCarthy, some of his limitations would have probably showed up had he played against that Michigan defense. So that's what makes it so hard with these guys. It all depends on the system you're in. But shoot, I think Caleb Williams is still probably that number one guy. Just like I said, for when shit hits the fan, when stuff breaks down, I think he's got the best ability to kind of get you out of some tough situations.
I like that. I like Michael Penix, bro. He throws a pretty fucking ball.
I love him, yeah. Best ball in college football, I still think, too, 100%.
Yeah, he throws a pretty fucking ball, and I like his. He's got some moxie in him. You know what I mean? He's got that. I'll get in there and get that tough yard if I need to. You know, kind of guy. I think we found out who Caleb Williams really was this year. I think he's a really average quarterback, right? And unless his wide receivers are making great catches, he kind of got exposed, bro. Like, he got Rice's son, who again made some really great catches to save him a lot of times, but he wasn't always able to do that, right? Because they play in it. Let's face it, the Pac-12 up until his last season is a really hard division to come out of unscathed, right? They always do it to themselves. They always shoot themselves in the foot because it's really hard to get wins in that division. But when you look at the draft, you got Chicago, Washington, New England, Arizona. I mean, unless you're absolutely, and I'm not. To me, those are four teams that need a quarterback. You know what I mean? So, and then you could go Chargers, Giants, Titans, and Falcons. You could say all of those eight teams could do with a better quarterback situation, right? So I think there's going to be a lot that polls is going to people are going to be throwing all kind of shit at them. And then, like you said, we haven't even really dived into too much the Justin Fields aspect. What can you get for Justin Fields? Like if you're polls and somebody says, "Hey, I'll give you a first rounder, not this year, but next year for Justin Fields," I take that shit. To be honest with you, like as much as I love Justin Fields, and I do think Justin Fields is the future for the Chicago Bears. And you ask anybody who talked to me before he got drafted, when I didn't think we had a shot in hell at getting him, I said I thought he was going to be the second player drafted. Right? He falls, we get him at 10, and I said I think when his career is over, right, when all is said and done, he's going to have the best career of the quarterbacks drafted that year. I still think that's possible. I don't know if it's with us or not, but I still think that's possible if we get him, the tools. With that being said, kind of leads into the NFL, bro. We've been talking about these teams that got these high ass draft picks, but none of them made it into the goddamn playoffs. my team included. We got our asses whooped this
It's
year.
all good. Hey, mine too. We're in the same boat.
Yeah, and now, okay, so since you're here, bro, and you came on and helped me out tonight, I gotta ask you, man. Belichick retiring. How does that hit you?
Yeah. Well, not even retiring, just leaving the Patriots because I think he's going to end
Well,
up,
yeah, I think
and we'll talk about this. I think he's going to end up on one of these teams that just got eliminated last week. or this. I think that's what he's looking to win now. But it was bittersweet. I wasn't even against him. It was different because during the year I thought, okay, I just want to move on at this point. Like he did all these great things. I mean, bro, my whole damn childhood was winning. Like I'm spoiled beyond any football fan ever. I grew up with Tom Brady and Belichick. Nobody can be as lucky as that, honestly. And I'm starting to see that now too, where you just as a kid you take for granted, oh, you were only 10-6 this year. Like you just those things, it's wild to comprehend now. So he's still the best coach of all time. I at one point thought, okay, well, how much of it was him? More of it was Brady, because without Brady, he's under 500 as a coach, this and that. But I also don't think, well, if Brady gets drafted to a different team in the sixth round, do we ever even know who Tom Brady is? Tom Brady wouldn't have won those three Super Bowls when they had Seymour and Rodney Harrison and all those guys on the defense. He had a whole Super Bowl run of just one touchdown pass. And now he's got the six, and he was carrying the team later on. But people forget that he got a head start with those three early Super Bowls when he was good, but he wasn't the X factor on the team. So, as much as I still think it's probably a bit more Brady because he is the player, I think Belichick still sometimes almost doesn't get enough credit because towards the end, yeah, as a GM, I thought he was terrible. Some of the draft picks and things he made, but he still's got his fastball on defense. Even for us as the Patriots, we weren't a great team by any stretch, but we lost Matthew Judon and Christian Gonzalez, the rookie from Oregon, our two best defensive players, like with Kyle Duggar and Peppers. So two of our four best defensive players were hurt, and we actually had a good defense by the end of the year. So I think he still got his fastball. Be interested to see where he goes. So to me, he's still the best coach of all time. But I'll be interested to see kind of where he goes from here because it'll be interesting to see. Because I know he's going to want to tie Tom. Where Tom won without him, you know he's going to want to do the same thing. So I'll be interested to see how it all plays out.
Funny you say that. And people who say, "Oh well, it was all Tom because he won after he left." You look at the situation Tom went to. You know what I mean? Let's be real clear. Tampa Bay had what Jameis. You know what I mean? And were balling with Jameis Winston. You know what I'm saying? And they were set up with Bruce Arians. People don't understand. Bruce Arians is a genius when it comes to him and Todd Bowles. The way they built that team, they built a Super Bowl team, bro. They were just a quarterback away from, and now what? They're 9-8, and Baker Mayfield's got Tampa Bay. It was a pretty similar squad that Tom had, right? And they're back in the playoffs. So I think you're a decent quarterback away from winning. Tom kind of got in there and got the cheat code. Like he went from Bill Belichick and that system which wins, and he comes to Bruce Arians and a team literally waiting for a quarterback that was halfway decent. Let's be real clear. If Aaron Rodgers would have left Green Bay a year earlier and went to Tampa Bay, they'd have some Super Bowls too. Like, that's the way I kind of felt about it. So I think Tom Brady kind of got the cheat code. No disrespect to him at all. I think Tom Brady is going to go down as one of, if not the best quarterbacks in the NFL. I'm still saying Joe Montana, but that's just me. But that's just because I hate the Patriots. But got nothing but love for you, Jack. But I hate the Patriots. But with that, now that Belichick is gone, how long do you think it'll be before the Patriots are back to the Patriot way, or as far as winning is concerned?
As far as like the Patriot way, to be honest, I don't know if they ever get back to that. As far as being competitive, I think it could be just next year. It all depends on what happens this offseason, though. If you do draft a Marvin Harrison and you get my ideal thing I said earlier for them is you get a Marvin Harrison and you get a Penix or let's say even that Marvin Harrison and Penix in the second round. They got a lot of free agency. If you get a tackle and then another tackle maybe or another weapon somewhere, I think you could work things out and be not great next year, but be 500 maybe, try to sneak into the playoffs because they already have a pretty damn good defense. Mayo's taken over the team, but Mayo was also in charge of a lot of the defense with Belichick last year. So it's not somebody who's coming in brand new. You don't know how the transition is going to work. I think it'll work good. Are they going to ever be the Patriots of old? I don't think so, but I think that if they play their cards right, which as recent years they've fucked up basically everything possible. Belichick has with the draft picks, how they've handled those things. They've done everything the wrong way. If they can start to turn that around a little bit, I think they could be competitive next year. Nothing crazy. Even this year, they were 4-13, but I think they lost 6 games by one score. Well, if you have a different quarterback, not they had basically the worst quarterback play in the NFL this year. If you have slightly below average quarterback play with another stud receiver, and you have another offensive tackle, 7, 8, 9 wins. I don't think is crazy. Now that's not going to set the world on fire, but I think you could go back to being competitive next year. Where it goes from there, we'll see. But I think that they have a chance to at least be decent back on people's radar.
Bro, could you imagine Michael Penix throwing to Marvin Harrison, bro?
That's
That's
my dream. That's my
unfair,
dream
dude.
right there. Hey, it's a little bit of a pipe
Woo!
dream, but a little bit of a pipe dream.
What
But
is it
hey,
though?
I think it's possible. I think it should be
Oh,
possible.
as the way the draft order is right now, you guys are picking third. Let's face it. Uh, uh, unless something miraculous happens, I think Marvin Harrison's going to be there at number 3. Depending on whether you guys go quarterback or not, he could fall to the damn Arizona Cardinals, which would be a damn shame because I'm not a fan of Murray. I don't think he's an NFL quarterback. I don't think he's going to lead them to the championship. I think they should try to get up and get a quarterback. But I digress. You could get Marvin Harrison at number 3. We all think Michael Penix is going to be there in the second round. That, as much as it sounds like a pipe dream, but that could be a reality. You could be speaking something into existence, sir.
I hope so. Problem is as a Patriots fan though, we've learned to expect the worst thing possible out of the draft. I mean, bro,
Yeah.
we've been here before. We drafted Sony Michelle, and I like Sony Michelle at the time. We drafted Sony Michelle when we could have drafted the other Georgia running back, Nick Chubb. We drafted the wrong Georgia running back. Hey, it's okay. We drafted Isaiah Wynn, who was a tackle. Now he's not a tackle. Now he's not even here. Lamar Jackson was on the board. We drafted N'Keal Harry when Debo was there. A.J. Brown was there. So I've been there, done that with these draft things. So as much as, like you said, I'm hoping that's what they do. I've seen it go the wrong way. I'm expecting them to pick someone I don't even know at number 3 overall. So just to say happy to be
Jack,
there, there.
we picked Mitchell Trubisky and traded up to get him. Hold my beer.
Yeah,
That's all I'm saying.
With Patrick Mahomes hanging right down there. Yeah, and Deshaun. I remember that.
Everybody said Mitchell Trubisky is going to be the shit. Yeah, okay, he the shit, all right. Um, and I kind of feel like Drake May, whether he's a good quarterback or not, is going to get some of that hate from the North Carolina side because of what happened with Mitch, right?
100%.
And right or wrong or whatever. But let's face it, that North Carolina is kind of tainted at this point.
Yeah, I think
I
even
want to get
even just to that point, but I think
yeah,
that's what hurt C.J. Stroud in the draft, being an Ohio State quarterback. I think if he was at a different school, he might have gone number 1 overall because Bryce Young looked really good in college, but he didn't have the measurables. He's kind of a Drew Brees. There's probably only one Drew Brees. It's harder to be, or Russell Wilson.
yeah.
It's harder to be small, and he was thin. So at a 6 feet tall, 5'11", and a thin guy, it's tough to be a quarterback like that. Anthony
Mm-hmm.
Richardson. I'm a Florida Gator fan, so I loved Anthony Richardson coming out. But I also watched every snap of him at Florida, every single snap he played. He's got all the tools you need. He just wasn't consistent enough. I would have still probably taken him number 1, but I think that's what hurt C.J. Stroud. Being Ohio State, they said, oh, well, we've seen all those guys. We saw the Troy Smiths. We saw the JT Barretts even, and then the Dwayne Haskins. Like they've seen all
Cardale.
those guys. So yeah, Cardell Jones. So I think that's what hurt C.J. Stroud. And May's gonna have to deal with some of that, but if he can get over the hump of that, he can kind of change that whole narrative in the school. So it's funny how those things work sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, my boy Nate, Uncle Nate, he says that shit all the time. So it sounds about right. Guy. He says, there's the Ohio State quarterback curse. I mean, when you think about it, they got really great college quarterbacks and zero NFL quarterbacks that do well. Like, I mean, you can't really name the last time a Ohio State quarterback won anything, and it's fair or unfair, it's true, right? A lot of those guys ended up coming out and switching positions when they got to the NFL. What's his name? The kid who got the tattoo scandal. I forget what his name was. His dad was like the high school coach, and then he came to Ohio State and then switched to wide receiver
Oh,
and was playing.
Braxton Miller. Is that who you're talking about?
Nah,
Oh
Braxton
no!
Miller did.
No, Terrell Pryor. Terrell Pryor is who you're
Terrell
thinking of.
Pryor. He
Braxton
ended up.
Miller switched when he was still in school, but okay, Terrell
Yeah,
Pryor. Terrell Pryor made a good
Terrell
career
Pryor
as a
switched when he
receiver.
got to the NFL. but he actually ended up being a decent wide receiver. And I think he got hurt or something like that. But he was actually, a damn good wide receiver, because he had to switch. I think the problem with Ohio State more recently is they weren't getting quarterbacks, they were getting athletes who could throw. You know what I mean? CJ Stroud is a quarterback. That dude is pure quarterback. There's no switching him to something else. You could almost see Justin Fields playing a different position, right? CJ Stroud's a quarterback, bro, and he can spin that fucking rock. I mean, he's got his downfield pass. He needs some work on his intermediate shit, but he's got a pretty ass deep ball, bro. With that being said, of the teams right now that are still that let's just say made the playoffs, who is your biggest surprise in the playoffs this year?
I mean,
Good or bad?
yeah, got to be C.J. Stroud and the Texans. I think to even make it. I liked him coming in. I mean, talk about just a home run high with D'Amico Ryans too. You got to see guys like that. Normally takes a few years. They weren't. Nobody thought they were going to be good this year. You drafted. They traded up for Will Anderson, which was a gamble. People were saying, "What are you doing trading up another pick?" Well, that turned out you got a
Mm-hmm.
great edge guy. You got a great quarterback, and they're in the playoffs already right now. So I think that was the biggest surprise to me in a positive way. And then I guess for how things turned out, it would probably be the Dallas Cowboys for a negative way. But I think we'll probably get into that a bit more too. But I think that would be the surprise in a negative way for how they. Because I mean, I guess because all the teams that missed the playoffs, none of them would have been a surprise because it was. I mean, the Bengals you thought, but once Burrow got hurt, it kind of changed things. Minnesota, where Kirk Cousins kind of changed things. Just the Chargers have Justin Herbert, but the coaching isn't great. The defense isn't great. They never find a way to kind of put it together. So I think there wasn't really a surprise for a team that missed the playoffs. Maybe Seattle is a team might throw out there, but Houston was definitely the biggest surprise in a good way as a team that nobody thought. I thought they could win maybe 5, 6 games, improve from last year, but I never thought they would take the strides that they did this year. And actually, wait, one surprise: the Jacksonville Jaguars really kind of surprised me how things unraveled. Yeah, Trevor Lawrence got hurt, but they looked really good at the beginning of the year. And I know he was banged up later on in the year, but they kind of were the one team that unraveled and just never. You got to wonder what position they go in now, because I think Trevor Lawrence is still a pretty good quarterback, but is he that Peyton Manning-esque guy they thought he was going to be? It looks like he might not be. And then how much do you pay that guy $60 million in an extension, which the going rate is now? Like that's what makes it tough because these quarterbacks make so much money. Talk about Arizona with Kyler Murray. They'd probably like to move off him, but they gave him 5 years, what, $250 million. You're paying him $50 million now. You're damn sure they're going to try to do everything they could to win with him now. And that's why some of these teams look to trade off, like Chicago might look to trade off of Justin Fields. Maybe not even because they don't believe in him, but because they can reset their pay scale with a rookie again and wait 5 years before you got to pay him. Justin Fields is good. If you're going to pay Justin Fields $35 million, you're not able to add those other things you are with a rookie quarterback.
We see it every year, right? You know what I mean? Casualties. You know what I mean? And it's why you don't see as much development. And now the expectation is you need to win right away. You know what I mean? They want these college quarterbacks to come in year 1, 2, or 3. You need to win by that point, right? Where back in the day, I mean, you look at guys that are still playing or just recently retired. You look at the Aaron Rodgers, you look at the Tom Brady's of the world. You look at you talked about him, Drew Brees. Most of those guys had to sit. Was it Aaron had to sit for 4 years behind Brett Favre? Oh my goodness, who's Bledsoe was the guy Tom Brady had to sit behind, and he was having a good year. Then he got hurt, and Tom Brady had to come in. But I think them sitting, you look at Jordan Love, right? He had to sit several years behind Aaron Rodgers. Now look at him. I think if Jordan Love didn't have those years behind Aaron Rodgers, he isn't the quarterback he is right now. Like, you know what I mean? He's out there playing like his name, like his shit says Rodgers on the fucking back. Like, you know what I mean? So I think people got to understand not just being able to come in and sit behind a guy, but sit behind the guy makes a huge difference, right? So, yeah, I think the easy pick for biggest surprise is the Houston Texans. I don't think anybody picked them to get to the playoffs. So definitely didn't expect them to hang 45 on that Cleveland Browns defense, right? To me, the biggest surprise is the Philadelphia Eagles, bro. And it's my good and bad pick because I don't think I expected them to start off as good as they did. I expected them to win games and get to the playoffs, but they fell off a cliff. It was like, what were they, 10-1 at one
10,
point?
10 and 1, yep.
10-1 didn't look like you could beat them, and they ended up what, 11-6, 11 and
Hmm.
7,
Yeah,
some shit
11 and
like, yeah,
7
11 and
technically,
6,
yep. Hmm.
yeah, and 11-6 is what you finished the regular season. You started off 10-1. That's a
Hmm.
goddamn shame. And then you got your ass handed to you by the 9-8 Tampa Bay
Hmm.
Buccaneers with Baker Mayfield. I mean, what?
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like, like I when I if I was betting on that game, which I thank God did not, I was like, oh yeah, the Eagles win this. This is easy. They're moving on. And I looked at my phone. I said, what? What?
Hmm.
What? 32-9? What the hell?
Hmm.
So to me, that was the biggest surprise because not just that they lost, because I mean, it's playoff football. Anything can happen, but it's the way they pretty much tainted their season, bro.
Hmm. The way
And I
they tank.
think, yeah, just let me finish this point.
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure.
That I, it's almost the reverse. Like I felt like the Dallas Cowboys were doing this. The Eagles did this pretty much after that, 10-1. But then you expected especially at home,
Hmm.
right? Like you said, I was like, oh no, the Cowboys got to beat the Packers at the crib because they've
Hmm.
been balling out at the crib. Dak is starting, and then they went back to being playoff Cowboys. So you kind of really surprised, kind of expected the Cowboys to fuck up at some point. I just
Hmm.
didn't expect it to be that early. But the Eagles, Jesus, bro. I
Hmm.
mean, phew. And then what is that like? Because we see this all too often, right? People get into panic mode. Do
Hmm.
you get into panic mode if you're the Philadelphia Eagles the way this year went?
Well, I do one because I think I fired their coach because I've never been a fan of Sirianni, and I'll kind of explain why. And then I love Jalen Hurts, but I think I'll get into him in a second too because I think still a good quarterback, but you got to see kind of where he ranks. So they looked so good last year. Part of the one problems about looking so good is that you're going to lose coordinators. Shane Steichen was their offensive coordinator. Shane
Mm-hmm.
Steichen does so good that Shane Steichen leaves, goes to Indianapolis, and we're seeing that he did good with nothing there with Gardner Minshew. When Sirianni was there before Steichen got there, Sirianni was calling plays and it wasn't going too well. Jalen wasn't looking great. Shane Steichen gets there. They look awesome. Jalen Hurts looks like a top five quarterback. He plays an A plus game in the Super Bowl, as good as I think he could have possibly played in a losing effort. And now here you
Yeah, I
are,
mean,
Shane.
he was the MVP
Hmm.
in that game as far as I
Yeah.
was
Hmm.
concerned.
Hmm. No, he really was. And then he leaves. Shane Steichen leaves. And then this year, it's just been they've taken a whole step back. And then Sirianni, someone who seems like he kind of lost the locker room a bit. Like I've never seen a team. Not only did they lose, but as you said, it's how they lost. They came out with no sense of urgency. Nobody wanted to tackle on defense. Like just something I never thought. I looked at them as okay. They might have some flaws, but they were a tough team. They're gonna come to fight, and that was just not what happened.
And they couldn't even
Which,
run the ball,
hmm
bro, which is
no,
their specialty.
yeah. And I wonder, so I'm going to pose this to you about Jalen Hurts because I love Jalen Hurts. I loved him in college. I love just his character, the way he's just the definition of a leader. If you want a guy, how do you want your franchise quarterback to act? It is exactly like Jalen Hurts. I think he's probably the best example of that in the NFL. Part of the reason why I always loved him though is because he kind of had that underdog feel to him also. Where in college, he was good at Alabama, and then Tua comes in and he transferred to Oklahoma. Even when he was good at Oklahoma, you never really looked at him and thought, okay, he's going to be a top five quarterback in the NFL. He gets drafted to Philly in the second or third round. He's a gadget guy at first, and then becomes the quarterback once Wentz gets hurt and all those things. He was always good, but before Steichen got there, he was just more of a project. Now, last year, he looked unbelievable. And this year he was still good, but kind of took a half step back. I wonder with Hurts, was last year just that perfect year, and we're gonna look back like 10 years from now and say, "Damn, Jalen Hurts is still a good quarterback, but man, he was awesome for that 1 year, and he's never gonna get back to that." I hope that's not the case because I love Jalen Hurts. I think you got to wonder now, especially with how much money he's going to be making, is that the situation that they're in, where he's a good quarterback, but maybe not the difference maker that we thought he was last year. Because, like we said, he had Steichen there as the offensive coordinator. Jason Kelsey's about to retire. Lane Johnson's older. He's going to retire soon, too. So you wonder if that situation kind of starts to unravel a little bit. Where are the Eagles going forward? Because I still love Jalen Hurts, but then I start to wonder, is he that elite level guy, which I thought he might have been, but is he more towards one of those guys who we say he's going to have the perfect situation to win?
It's rough, and I think it's situational, right? Like you said, last year he had his guy. He had it. To me, it's it's not the same extreme because I think he's a way better quarterback than Kaepernick is. But I look at it when Kaepernick had Jim Harbaugh, right? And the 49ers. And they had all their weapons, right? They had the Crabtree. They had everything you want in a football team. A lot of people thought Kaepernick was a one trick pony. He couldn't get them. You know, he wasn't that good. They went to back NFC title games, bro. And he was more of a reason they got there than just a guy on the team, right? He wasn't just a guy. He was their quarterback, and he was flourishing because he was allowed to do what he does best. And they weren't overdoing it. They kind of broke it down and made it. And Jim Harbaugh, if you like him or not, he's a quarterback whisperer, bro. You look at every level he's been at, you know, he's got more out of his quarterbacks than just about anybody else. You know what I'm saying? And I think that it was the perfect situation for Kaepernick to look really good, right? What happens when Jim Harbaugh leaves? You know what I mean? Kaepernick don't look the same, bro. Does that mean he's a shit quarterback? No. It means you have to have somebody. The coaches are coaches for a reason, right? Coordinators are coordinators for a reason. They're there to maximize the talent level of the guys they have on their team. So to your point, yes, we all love Hurts. I mean, the dude he is, right? Everybody you can tell the players on his team are playing for him more than they're playing for anybody else. I kind of equate it to the Nick Foles thing, right? Everywhere Nick Foles has gone, he's people have loved him. Is he the best quarterback? No, but he had a really good situation in Philly. I always say this: they should have kept him instead of Wentz. It's my personal opinion because I think they could have won more with him. It was just a good situation, right? But you're spending on Wentz, kind of like Murray is in Arizona. You go with the guy you put money into. But you look at what Jalen Hurts is capable of. I think again, you get the right coordinator. You and let's face it. Really, in the playoffs, they have one receiver. You know what I mean? They had a lot of injuries. A lot of guys were hurt. So I get that you are kind of a one trick pony, coming into this. But I think with a full set of weapons and the right coordinator, I think the sky is the limit for Philly. So I don't think you have to necessarily have a fire sale, right? But I do think that, like you said, you need to reconsider who your head coach is and get the right coordinators in place. But to your point, okay, well, what happens when those coordinators leave for head coaching gigs? It's it sucks. If you can get a team that's willing to be around, some coordinators are willing to be around for a little bit. I don't think you need to have a fire sale yet because it's 1 year, and they were winning. They were 10-1 when everything was going right. You know what I mean? So I think, believe it or not, I think the fire sale needs to happen in Dallas. I think it's time to move on. I love Dak. I do. Dak is kind of similar to Jalen Hurts for me. Like you like the guy he is, but he's not the guy for Dallas to get to the Super Bowl. So for me, it'd be more of a fire sale for Dallas than I think it is in Philly.
Yeah, I can see that point. And even for Dallas, I was so surprised by that too because I never got as much into the narratives about they're the Cowboys, so they're gonna find a way to mess it up, which has been true. But because for a certain team, I think it is. But I thought these are new guys like Dak and Tony Pollard and Micah's there now. Like it can't possibly be the same thing, but here we are, and it is. I was someone who thought, I think you see this a lot of times in sports. When a certain player, you see it in boxing a bit too, when a certain player when people think they get overrated so much, I think that person becomes underrated just because people think they're so overrated. I think Dak was kind of that guy for a little bit. I thought that people would say, oh, Dak sucks. He's not the guy, this and that. So I thought, because people think he's overrated, I thought he became underrated. He had an awesome year this year. And I thought, okay, if there's a year that they're going to get shit done, it's this year. Turn around and it's just like just didn't happen. Like there's even no explanation for it. We can break things down and do all those kind of things. There's no explanation for what happened with them against Green Bay besides they just shit their pants. Like the moment seemed
And
too
you
big.
can't even
Like it
put
was
that
just
all on
crazy.
Dak, bro.
No, no,
Did you
no.
see the way that defense played? Good
No.
lord.
Yeah, Dan Quinn went from becoming looking to get head coaching jobs, and the problem is he's calling those places back, and they probably ain't calling back right now. I'll guarantee you that after that performance. But yeah, it's not all on him. It's a lot of it's on Mike McCarthy too. I mean, just that's the spot I think Belichick probably ends up at is Dallas, which seems crazy. A lot of people think of it as a crazy spot, but I think Jerry Jones is older too. Jerry Jones
He
is
was like
gonna,
80.
yeah, him and Bill are both kind of in that same spot though, where does Jerry Jones would he want to have a guy like Bill Belichick long term? Probably not, because Jerry wants to kind of do his thing still. But if Jerry's only got a few years to try to win a Super Bowl, he looks at it and probably says, "Okay, Bill Belichick is my best bet to do that." Yeah, we'll probably piss each other off for those few years, but hey, if we win at the end of the day, like Jimmy Johnson did and all those guys did, winning solves a lot of things in a short time. They're not going to be there for 10, 15 years together. I'll be interested to see. I think Belichick could tighten that defense up a bit. Does he bring in a Josh McDaniels as an offensive coordinator? And I don't know what you do with Dak because I still think he's a good quarterback. But I mean, I've always been a defender of him, but it's tough after that game to now say he's your guy. I don't know what kind of trade value there is for him. Does the team give you a first round pick for him? Those are the kind of things that will determine whatever his value is. If his value is really high, I think they move on from him. If his value is not as high as they think it is, they might keep him. But if you keep him, you got to re-sign him. We talk about these quarterback money. You're gonna really pay Dak 5 years, $280 million now? When you talk about, oh, then you're not adding anything else. You're subtracting things. That's what makes it so hard when you get these big money. So I don't know what to do with Dak, honestly. As much as I'd love to say, give him the benefit of doubt, it's kind of hard to. And as you said, the whole blame, it ain't all on him, but he deserves some of that blame. Even later in the game, you're down a few scores, you need a drive, you still throw another pick six, or you like just all those things. It's just, man, it's tough.
And let me ask you this, right? Because this is the way I look at it. If I'm Dallas, are there 32 quarterbacks better than Dak? Nope.
No.
Is there anyone in the draft right now where you're picking at? Is where you're picking at in the draft? Do you think the guy you could pick a guy better than Dak
Nope.
right now?
Mm-mm. Nope.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
and then they've got what's the kid they got from San Fran? What's the kid? He was like all world at North Dakota State or some shit.
Oh, Trey
And then
Lance. Yeah, Trey
yeah, they
Lance.
got Trey Lance. Do you think Trey Lance can be the guy? So
Probably
unless you
not.
think any of those things are possible, right? Because let's face it, like you just said, Jerry Jones is in that I need to win right now. I don't need to win in 5 years because he's 80. You know what I mean? Let's face it. He wants to win right now. He even said it in his post game interview. He was like, I don't know how to respond to that because I had no idea we were going to be where he was like, I was fully prepared to be having, celebration conversations. He was like, I don't even know how to respond to this, right? And I think everybody was because, again, how they were playing and all that. So I think you have to look at it whether even if you don't think Dak is the guy right now or if you don't think he's the best, it's like, okay, of the guys that'll be available in free agency, are any of them better than Dak? Are any of the guys we can draft better than him or anybody we currently have on the roster? No. If the answer is no to any of those, you kind of have to ride Dak out another year at least. You know what I'm saying? But then you get, like you said, you get into that contract talk, and money is a motherfucker.
Mm-hmm.
So, but and it's to me, it's the kind of the same conversation for Jalen Hurts.
Mm-hmm. No, 100%. Yep.
Yeah, like,
You
are
got.
you going to find anybody?
Mm-mm.
There's definitely not a better quarterback on your roster, right?
Mm-hmm.
You, you'd be hard pressed to tell me there's a better guy, for the Eagles coming out of the draft. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
maybe, you know what I'm saying?
No, where they're going to
But
be picking either, though. To your point, also. Mm-hmm.
right, and then you have to understand, like, Pennsylvania is a rough place to come in and be a quarterback
Mm-hmm.
because they've got to love you. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Let's be real clear. Speaking of, I want to get on this real quick.
Mm-hmm.
The other Pennsylvania team, the
Mm-hmm.
AFC, we haven't talked much about them. Pittsburgh Steelers, bro. I know that they're down to their third string quarterback in Mason Rudolph. What would you do if you were the Steelers? I mean, do you keep? Because I don't know, bro. Like, uh, well, Mitch Trubisky to me is a solid backup. So I think you kind of keep
Mm-hmm.
him around because he's a solid backup in case you need a win or two or just a game filler.
Mm-hmm.
What would you do at quarterback if you were the GM of the Pittsburgh Steelers, bro?
Yeah, I think maybe you want to see Kenny Pickett with another year, but they're in a different spot where I agree with you 1,000% with Dak and with Jalen Hurts. Because yeah, you might say it might be hard for them to carry a team to win a Super Bowl, but hey, is there better options out there? That's where the Raiders messed up last year when the Raiders they cut Derek Carr. They're like, okay, we're gonna move on from him. So they surveyed the landscape, looking who's the best quarterback out here, and they're like, oh shit, we just cut the best one available. Like, so now we're stuck with Jimmy G. That's the team that these things. I mean, you move, like you said, when you move on from those other guys, they're the best ones. Kenny Pickett's a little different boat where he was a first round pick. I'm not too sure. I think where he got hurt this year, maybe you roll him back out there again. I mean, Mike Tomlin talk about a coaching job of a team that is always in the mix, even when they shouldn't be. So if you're the Steelers, I think you look to want to get kind of reset a scale that way. They have more flexibility with that because they're not as Kenny Pickett was a first round pick. He was from Pitt, so I know they loved him when they got him. But I don't think they're not as invested in him as Dallas's Dak or Philly is Hurts. I think they got a little more leeway to kind of maybe go another way than those other teams do.
Okay, so let's say if you had a choice between Kenny Pickett and or and picking somebody in the draft, do you stick with Pickett or are you trying to draft somebody else? Is there anybody in the draft right now where you're going, yeah, I think we can win with him?
I'd say most of those top guys. But that's what's interesting because you don't know. Part of the thing what with Justin Fields in Chicago is Justin Fields Patrick Mahomes? No. But you know he don't suck either. Like you know he's a quality player. Kenny Pickett's kind of the same thing. Is Kenny Pickett Josh Allen? No. But you know he's not going to be a third string quarterback. You know he's a decent player. So I mean I think like the Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix, Penix, maybe even a JJ McCarthy are probably you'd like they look like better picks, but what if those guys don't pan out? So that's what's interesting. Where you never, at least the NFL guys, you know what you got. When like Justin Fields, you know the ceiling and you know the floor of those guys. It might not be what you thought it was originally, but hey, you know what you got. Kenny Pickett. They know that okay, if we roll with Kenny Pickett, which is why they probably would still roll with him. Okay, if he's healthy, we could still win 10, 11 games and make the playoffs. He ain't a superstar or anything like that. But those other quarterbacks, you might draft one of those trying to take another step up, and you might take two steps back doing that. So I think a guy like Kenny Pickett, a decent guy, but you might be better off. I'm kind of at first I was gonna say go for those other guys. You might be better off sticking with what you got because you'd have to trade assets, like a trade up to get some of those other guys maybe too.
I'm with you, and I think that the players they have surrounding Kenny Pickett, and then again, Mike Tomlin is, he's Mike Tomlin, bro. Like, he's one of the best, and I don't think he gets a lot of the love that he deserves either.
Not nearly enough.
Nah, and I like you said, he does a lot with a little. Let's get into some little. We love picking winners. We do it on Catch and Count all the time. We number one show on ITR. Go check us out if you haven't already. But let's get to picking. Divisional round. We got the NFC games. The Packers, 49ers, Tampa Bay, Detroit. Give me your picks, bro.
Both interesting games, honestly. I mean, I'm gonna pick the two favorites. I think San Fran and Detroit probably win. I'm interested to see those if, especially in the Detroit game or the San Fran game, if San Fran starts slow, if Jordan Love goes out, because you worry about those teams on a bye week sometimes if you start slow a little
Hmm.
bit. If
Hmm.
they get out to a 7, 10, 14 nothing lead, that's the questions I still have is about Brock Purdy in San Francisco. Kyle Shanahan, I'm 99% sure it's true, so I'm gonna say it. If it ain't true, it don't matter anyways. But I don't think Kyle Shanahan has ever came back from a game when he's been down 2 scores or more ever in his head coaching career. Look at Brock Purdy's numbers. When he's winning, when they're winning, he's doing good. When they're same thing with Tua in Miami and Mike McDaniel. When you're able to follow the script and you're ahead of the chains, you're winning the game. It's a lot easier to get things going. When you're losing the game and you got it, and the other team knows, okay, they're throwing the ball deep. They can't do anything else. They got to try to cut into this lead. You're a lot more limited, and I think Purdy would show his limitations in that. So, I got the 49ers and I got the Lions. I think that game's interesting too. But I think I love the Baker Magic in Tampa. I think it's been pretty cool. I think it probably runs out though. So I got Detroit and I got San Fran winning.
I mean, it's hard to argue those picks, right? Because they're the favorites. I'm going the other way, and it's gonna kill me to say this as a Bears fan, but Jordan Love is cooking right now, bro. And I like what that defense is doing. It's San Francisco, though. Right now, I think as long as San Francisco stay, and I've said this the last couple of years, if they stay healthy, you can't beat them, right? I mean, CMC is a beast. That boy should be every year he should be talked about for MVP, right? Brock Purdy is has he's already far exceeded everyone's expectations by a mile. You know what I mean? If he retired tomorrow, he would have done more than most people thought he was ever going to do in the NFL. So I am going to take the 49ers over the Green Bay Packers, but I think that's going to be a very and the only reason I'm giving it to them is because San Fran's at home and they're not going to blow the pooch like the Cowboys will. But I think that's going to be a hell of a game. I think it's going to be really close. But I'm taking the Bucks over the Lions, and the reason I'm taking the Bucks over the Lions is that defense in front of the Bucks is lights out, bro. They're their defense is playing how you want a playoff team to play right now. I think for me, they are the epitome of it's not how many wins you have, it's when you start winning. And you, I don't know if you remember, it was the Arizona Cardinals. They were 8-8 and made the playoffs, and then ended up being in one of the best Super Bowls I've ever watched myself against Pittsburgh. And I think if it hadn't been for a pick six at the end of the first half, they probably would have won that goddamn game. It reminds me of that run, right? Like they're hitting the way you wanted to hit at the right time. Fuck what they did in the regular season. I think Baker is playing the way you want him to play. They're getting good out of their running backs. I mean, Mike Evans is Mike Evans, bro. He's gonna do what he does. They got some other guys that are cooking. They got a speedster. What's his name? Number 10. I forget what his name, but that dude is. And their defense is just so. I'm taking the Bucks over the Lions, but I will say I do think the 49ers win by like a field goal against the Packers. But that if not overtime, I think that's going to be the game of the week for me to watch. So we got Jack going with the 49ers and the Lions. I'm taking the 49ers and the Bucks. Let's switch over to the AFC, bro. We got the Houston Texans and the Baltimore Ravens, Kansas City, and Buffalo at Buffalo. Who you picking, bro?
So first, I want to say it's just that Kansas City Buffalo game. That's my game of the week to me. Just I can't wait for that game. I know Buffalo's lost the last few times to Kansas City in the playoffs, and I think they lose again to Kansas City. I like the Chiefs. I've liked even when the Chiefs were at their worst, I still like them this year because they're a different team than they used to be. They don't got to score 35 points to win anymore. Like they have Patrick Mahomes. Whenever you have a team like this, you have a Hall of Fame coach, a Hall of Fame quarterback, and an elite defense. You normally win championships. Brady and Belichick did it. All these teams have done it. So yeah, they don't have Tyreek Hill anymore. They've had all the drops. Kelsey don't look like he might not be the same dude anymore. They just get shit done still, though. And I think that they're able to run the ball more than ever before. They kind of remind me of that Patriots team that beat the Rams in the Super Bowl. The most recent one, though, when Jared Goff was in the Rams. Brady was good. They had Sony Michel. They were able to run the ball more than they used to. They had an aging tight end in Gronk, kind of like Kelsey. We're not the same guy, but can still make plays here and there. Most importantly, they led on their defense. They won that game 13-3 in the Super Bowl. What makes the Chiefs so dangerous is that they don't have to score 35 points. Their defense is so good. For as good as Josh Allen is, he's the kind of guy that can win you a game but also lose you a game. That's part of the reason I love watching him too, is that he'll make a holy shit, that was amazing play, and then a holy shit, you just cost us the game play 2 seconds later. So at the end of the day, I just think that Kansas City's
He's
got
like
the
a
better.
modern day Brett Favre,
Yeah,
just
no,
bigger.
he really is. I think that Kansas City's got the better defense, and once it comes down to it, they've been there, done that before. I still trust Mahomes. I love Josh Allen. I trust Mahomes over Josh Allen at the end of the day, so I'll take Kansas City. But I'm gonna take Baltimore against Houston. But man, that's kind of like that San Fran Green Bay game where I don't know, man. I'm a little worried about that one because I love Lamar Jackson too. He's my favorite quarterback in the NFL. I just love same kind of like Jalen Hurts. The way he goes about himself, the way he's been able to silence doubters, I think has been unbelievable. Even just since Louisville, since through the draft, when they talked about changing his position. No, he's a quarterback. He's throwing the ball awesome now. New offensive coordinator. They've been doing so well, but man, CJ Stroud, just like Jordan Love, he's a bad boy right there. So that's a game I can't wait for too. I think that the Ravens defense, and I think they'll be able to control clock. But hey, I don't know with CJ Stroud either. That's the game where I gotta really think, and I really hope it's funny because CJ Stroud, I like him too. He can afford to lose this game and he'll be okay. For Lamar Jackson, I think he's got to win this game because all the doubters and the naysayers can say, well, just kind of like Dak is, oh, you were great in the regular season, but look what you did in the playoffs yet again. So I think this is a most important game of his career. I think he delivers because I think he is that guy. But I'm a little worried, and I'm interested to see how that game plays out. Because even if he plays great and they lose, people aren't going to care because he was the one seed again, and then
Yeah.
they flamed out in their first game.
Hmm. All right, I'm doing it again. All right, so you're taking the Chiefs at the Bills. I think this is the year the Bills finally get over the Kansas City hump, and I think because they're at home. I mean, that weather is a bitch, but I my only caveat is this, and I think this game, like it has the last couple of years, doesn't necessarily come down to the level of talent you have on the field because Buffalo's got talent coming out of its ears, and on paper they should be able to run with any team in the NFL, right? I think we can all agree on that. I think it comes down to which coach makes the better plays, which calls the better plays. Which I think this game, as it did before, comes down to the coaching. Andy Reid is a cold motherfucker. He's going down to the Hall of Fame. First ballot when he retires and his time comes around, just go ahead and send him his bus. That's the way I look at it. But I'm here to tell you, man, I think Buffalo is, and it's almost fool's gold because even though I just pumped up Andy Reid, I kind of feel like they're finally in a place where they can get over that. I think they can finally get over it at home. I think the weather's going to be a factor. I think if Josh Allen plays the way he has the last couple of weeks, you can't. I mean, when he's on, bro, and like you said, when he's not, you know what I mean? As long as he doesn't make the bonehead, oh, I just lost us the gameplay, I think Buffalo hangs on to this one. Again, another tight game. I think this game goes to overtime. And I think it's going to be the team who gets it second because they would just be able to kick a field goal that wins. And I think that's Buffalo. Um, but of course, I wouldn't be surprised if the Chiefs win by a lot because they're the fucking Chiefs and that's what the fuck they do. But my heart is telling me to go with the Bills. I want Stephon Diggs to get a goddamn win over the Chiefs. He's been, he's kicking himself in the ass. It's hard for me to pick against Lamar Jackson. It really is. And kudos to C.J. Stroud and what he's done so far this year. Lamar Jackson wins. I think it's Lamar in the Ravens and in the Bills in the championship game. Um, for all of those reasons, though, right? Lamar Jackson has quietly had an MVP season. You know what I mean? And I think he's earned everything he's gotten up to this point. I think and I know I'm going ahead a week, but I think he gets them into the Super Bowl this year. That's how high I am on what I've seen from Lamar Jackson. So I'm taking the Ravens and the Bills. You're taking the Ravens and the Chiefs. We'll see, bro. And like you said, that CJ Stroud, bro. If they play like they did last week against the Browns, it's gonna be a dangerous fucking game.
In a war too, just because Baltimore they had the bye week and they sat a lot of their guys, which is good. But also that's another week they haven't played. It's now been 2 weeks, or it'll be their third week since they had played. So that kind of changes things. But even going back to the Josh Allen point, they've kind of refined what they've done where he's played good. He hasn't played unbelievable in this win streak, but I think that's been the best thing for the team. When they fired their offensive coordinator and they brought in Joe Brady, who was at LSU before, they got to run the ball way more than they used to before, and Josh Allen doesn't have to put on the Superman cape for them right now. If he needs to in a moment, don't get me wrong, you're damn right he can do those kind of things. But they've been doing a good job of limiting his potential mistakes and the potential lose you the game plays, and that's what makes them dangerous. I think it's hard to run on a team like Kansas City. They even showed against Miami that even in the weather, where Miami wasn't built for the weather, they were. Buffalo will be built for the weather too. If Buffalo's able to run the ball and Josh Allen's able to kind of just not be a game manager, because he's way more than that, I don't even want to say it, but manage the game and not have to go crazy, that's when they're at their most dangerous, 100%. And I think that's where they do have a chance to beat the Chiefs this year, because the Chiefs are, even though I'm still picking them, they're more vulnerable than they've been because they're not putting up 30 points a game. So if you're able to score points on them, which is still much easier said than done, there is a real path to victory in there for them.
What else? What else can I say? That sounds about right. That's how we do here.
You're
You know
damn
what I
straight.
mean? Jack coming through with the stats, baby. I mean, you can't argue with it. You know what I mean? It's just like when we do catch and counter, bro. I really can't. You goddamn right. There are moments when we do our show where sometimes I have to like come up with shit to argue against you because you say what I'm thinking. I'll say what you're thinking. I'm like, well, shit, I got to say some shit I know Jack ain't going to say because he's going to say exactly what the fuck I'm thinking. And he's got all these goddamn stats. So that's one thing I envy of you, bro. Like, I follow sports, I follow boxing and football like nobody's business. I know a lot about the sport more than most casual fans. But your ability to dial up like stats and names like that, fuck out of here. I don't know what kind of computer brain you got going on. Google is my friend. Let's put it that way. Yeah, yeah. I'll
Hey,
never forget. We were doing a show, and I forget again. I don't forget the boxer's name already,
mm-hmm.
but it was some obscure fight I was referencing, and I was like, yeah, this one guy, he fought this dude, I can't remember his name, and you pulled it, no,
Yeah,
no,
right
no
away.
typing,
Mm-hmm.
you pulled it right away, and I was like, this motherfucker. Yeah, yeah. How you do that shit, I don't know, bro. Like,
Yeah, I don't know. Hey, I wish that shit would transfer over to school and I could remember those things again when I do sports. But hey, it's all good. But it is funny because I still do love like the college sports. It's kind of since I got into boxing, it's kind of watered me down in the college sports a little bit. Where like we just talked about college football, so I know those things. But I used to know basically all the starters for all those big teams, and I don't know as much anymore. Where at the NFL, you still know all the guys, but it's been crazy since I picked up boxing. It's kind of hurt me a bit in the other sports just because I've added so much boxing knowledge in just a few years. This kind of affected me on like college basketball. I used to know all the guys. I don't really know many of the college basketball guys anymore. So once you get to the draft, I'll be able to figure it out. But so hey, I got a lot of stuff in there, but it's you got to kind of give and take a little bit at times too. So I do the best I can with it.
for me, it's nature versus nurture because growing up, I was naturally into football. Like, football was the sport I gravitated to. We play all, as kids, we all, especially I feel like in the Midwest and the East Coast, you're outside a lot more. You know what I mean than most of the kids out here in Arizona, anyway. But most of us grew up playing all the sports. right? And then you pick one when you get older. Mine was football from the jump. It was just like, nah, fuck that. I'm going over here where they get to hit people. And boxing was a nurture thing where it was like everybody in my family loved the sport, right? And I have an uncle he's like you. He can recall shit from back in the 50s and 60s, and I'm like, how the fuck do you remember that? You know what I mean? But you know, he remembers all these guys, and it's kind of where I get my support local boxing thing, where he knows the names of local fighters who never made it. You know what I mean? And so it was like a nurture thing. I wanted to be like that because of the people in my family and the love they had for the sport. But football was, oh yeah, man, that shit's in my DNA, bro. Like I want we can get into this at another time, but I just kind of briefly want you to touch on this. How do you feel about the current state of football versus what we kind of grew up watching and playing?
I guess I'm a good person to touch on it too because I've been alive for the whole change of it. Even when I was playing football a bit, that was when they first started calling like those blindside blocks and all those things. So I remember my first year, my junior year, making a few of those blindside blocks that you used to always make and you always taught to make, but they started becoming flags. You can't hit the quarterback as much. So, I mean, I think it's all well and good for player safety. It makes sense, but man, it really does kind of take away from the game though. And you know me, I'm always like a safety like even for boxing, I don't mind some of the early stoppages and stuff like that, but man, it's starting to not even become football at times no more. It's weird, and I think that I don't blame the offenses, but they kind of take advantage of it. Well, you'll see the guys, Josh Allen, even in the last game, he kind of started a step, but it looked like, well, is he going to slide? Is he going to keep going? So if you're a defender, what the hell are you supposed to do? Or even if you're going at a quarterback, you can't hit the quarterback in the head. It's penalty. Well, if you dive at his knees, that's a penalty too. So it's like it's so hard. You gotta hit the guy in the perfect spot. And I played a lot of even once I got the later in high school and in college, I was on the defensive side of the ball, so I understand all those things. And it's just tricky because it's I get that you want it for ratings, offense is good. For player longevity, offense is good, but man, they're just making it so much harder and harder to play actual defense. And it's just, man, I just don't know because they're probably making the right calls with the science and all those things, but it's
Yeah,
you kind of like boxing, like it's a dangerous sport. So not to say like you sign like, but those guys do sign up for it too. So I'm all for it. Yeah, the helmet to helmet and all that shit. Yeah, that's fair. But I think they've gone over compensating too much now. I think it's just tough because the defender, man, it's harder than ever. You can't even brush a guy if you're covering him in coverage. You can't even, like I said,
nope.
if you got Josh Allen coming at you, if he slides real quick and you just go over the top and you nick him, that's a 15-yard penalty. Well, if he kind of hesitates and he runs your ass over because he's 240 pounds, well, then you were waiting on the flag. Like, so it's just you can't win on defense, and that's what's hard. Where I don't blame the NFL for the way they're doing it, but it's almost like if you're on defense, bro, it's a lose-lose situation. It's like you either get a penalty or you hesitate, and then you get your ass run over because these quarterbacks are more explosive than ever before.
I saw a play. This was when Tom was still with the New England Patriots, and this was like when the rules that they were calling them the Tom Brady rules. Not you can't touch the quarterback. Basically, is what it came down to. But he went to run out of bounds. It looked like he was running out of bounds, and the safety was coming up. He runs up and he sees him kind of slowing down like he's going to go out of bounds. So he eases up, and then Tom sees that he's easing up, and I think he ran for like another 10 or 12 yards before he got pushed out of bounds by somebody else. And you see, somebody on the opposite sideline chewing this safety out. Well, they interview him after the game, and they're like, well, what happened? And he's like, look, man, I'm here on vet minimum. He was like, if I hit Tom Brady, you know what I mean? Whether it's a legal hit or not, I could possibly get fined. That's a quarter of my check. He was like, I can't afford that. And it literally made all the sense. Like I used to hate that shit. I'm like, nah, man, play harder, fuck. But it goes. I was like, well, shit. How do you argue that, right? If there's a guy in there making, 800,000, which a lot of people think, oh, that's a lot of money, but after taxes, and paying everybody you got to pay, let's face it, a $25,000, $50,000 fine, and then maybe even getting suspended for hitting a Tom Brady. Guess what? That's like you said, a quarter of his pay, not for the game, for the season. So do you risk, if you're a guy that's a fringe player like that who gets called up because of injuries or whatever, that could be, like you said, that fake slide, right? Quarterbacks can take advantage of that now because if you're sliding, you see it all the time. Defenses stop when they see a quarter. Most of the time, they stop because they don't want to get those fines. They don't want to get the big penalty that could cost the team the game, right? Well, if he fake slides and then takes off on me, what the fuck do I do with that? So yeah, I'm with you on that, bro.
And it's even gone to the offensive side of the ball, like Jalen Warren, the running back for the Steelers. I remember he had just a block, and it's like some of the guys, some of the fines, and you guys listening can look back, just look up like the history of the NFL fines this year. Bro, there are so like I can't even believe the amount of fines that they're giving these guys. And you look back and you'll watch the plays because I'll go back and I'll watch the clips of when the plays were. The guys will just be blocking and they won't hit him helmet to helmet. They'll just lower their head and extend and they'll get fined for it. Jalen Warren got fined like $50,000, which is basically his game check. So the dude played for free because he was trying to make a block and not because he hit the guy in the head, because he lowered his head trying to make a like just it's just so
Yeah,
hard on both sides. Even on offense, like you're trying to block, you'll see some of these plays. The guys won't even be involved in the play, and they're getting fines for things they do off the ball that don't even impact anybody. So I think they're going, yeah, like I said, player safety. I get it. We don't want these dudes all having CTE, anything like that, but they're going way too far overboard. Where, like you said, players are second guessing. Well, is it even worth it to try to go out and make the football play that they've been taught to make their whole lives, muscle memory wise, man? And that's just what it's hard now. I don't know what the answer is though either at this point.
I say, and look, and I've said this all the time, and you know me. I say it in boxing. I'm gonna say it in football. It's a violent sport. The players signed up for that. I've seen numerous interviews with guys who have serious injuries, can't walk, have some kind of ailment from playing the game of football. And the question always comes up after they've given their sob story about the shit that they're going through. Would you do it again? The answer is like 80%. Hell yes. Why? Because they love the game of football, right? So my thing is, yeah, you do want to make it safer to a point, but at the same time, it's not like they signed up to play patty cake. They're not tennis players. They're not playing golf. They're playing a violent sport. It's violent for a reason. That's why people like watching it. Let's be real clear. People like watching the NFL because it's violent. You got 200-pound men running around faster than they should humanly be able to and hitting each other. It's why people love MMA and boxing, right? You got two guys or women getting into a ring or a cage and wanting to beat the shit out of each other. Sign me up. You know what I mean? Imagine if in boxing or even in MMA, if they said, okay, you've got to wear 30-ounce gloves. What the fuck? You know what I mean? Or everybody has to now wear headgear, 30-ounce gloves, and in MMA you got to wear those. What's the pads they put on the shins and,
Oh
and, and
yeah,
shit?
like the shin pad. I don't know exactly what they call, it, but I know what
Yeah,
you're talking
yeah,
about.
but
But
you know
yeah,
what I'm talking about. It's a different thing now, right? It's pillow fighting. You know what I mean? So yes, there are fundamental changes. You don't want guys being out there nasty. You don't want guys out there just trying to tear somebody else's head off, but you still want football. So I get it, bro, and I think anybody who's a fan of the more traditional football that we all grew up with, 70s, 80s, 90s. I think everybody kind of agrees, but they see the point. Obviously, we don't want any of these guys to not be able to go home to their families at the end of the day. Jack, it's been awesome, man. You came on, sounds about right. And here it sounds about right. Whenever somebody is new to our show, we have a little game we like to play with you. Whether you like it or not, we're going to play.
I bet.
So, this is real simple. I'm going to ask you a whole bunch of questions, right? About
Hmm.
20 or 30 or so. The point of the game is to answer as quick as possible. So you get 10 seconds from the time frame that I finish the question to give your answer, right?
Bet.
Now,
Bet.
You do get one repeat. So if I read it too fast or you just want clarification on something, you can say, hey, can you repeat that? And then the clock starts over. Okay.
Okay.
You ready?
I'm ready. Let's get it.
What sound or noise do you love the most?
Damn, I might lose this one, man. I don't know. I was trying to think of something. I don't know. I was trying to think of something money related, hey, but
Just an honest answer, bro.
honestly, not. When I'm in the gym, when I hear punches, honestly, I'll say that. Then
You get to live in one of these four options for free for the rest of your life.
okay.
The options are treehouse, cabin in the woods, waterfront mansion, or a tiny home. Which would you choose?
Man, I'll take the woods one. Honestly, I kind of like that feel. I've never like lived in like a setting like that, but I feel like that would be kind of pretty cool. So I kind of do my thing in a little wood setup. I think.
I can see that on you too, Jay.
Hmm.
Pepsi or Coke?
Coke.
My man. Name a Beatles song.
Oh, man, that's a little before my time now. Man, I gotta know one. This forfeit.
All
Gotta know
right,
that
he
one.
passes.
Yeah.
If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Man, you made it. Congratulations.
Right?
Hmm.
Flats or drumsticks?
Um, Either. I don't know if that's an answer or not, but either. I'll say.
It's a cop out, but we'll let it slide.
Okay. Yes.
In a zombie apocalypse, what would be your weapon of choice?
um, Gun. I guess like an AK-47 or something crazy I could use. I don't know. Quickest thing.
Is Valentine's Day a legit holiday?
It depends if you got someone that's worthy enough for it. I guess I'll say.
Ford or Chevy?
I'll say Chevy.
Which foreign language that you don't already know would you like to learn?
Spanish. I'll say a little bit. I don't know enough, but that's the one I want to get to do. Interviews and stuff. That will help out a little bit. So I'll say that one for sure.
It's good and it's universal.
Hmm.
One of these movie franchises has to go. The options are Star Wars, Rocky, Fast and Furious, Lord of the Rings, or The Avengers.
Lord of the Rings. Kind of easy one for me, but hey, no shade.
Okay. I knew you weren't going to say Rocky.
Yes, no, that one's in. I ain't even a big of a fan as that as I probably should be, but that one could stay in there.
How would you describe humanity to aliens with one word?
Interesting.
Hmm. Forks or spoons?
Fourth.
If you were a superhero, what would be your superhero name?
A superhero name. Maybe Captain Jack. It's kind of not really it, but I don't know, something like that with my name. I guess that'll work
We'll
out.
take it.
All right, bet.
Now, now that you have your superhero name, Captain Jack,
Hmm.
if you had a superhero ability and you had to choose between these two options, which would they be? Would you rather have the ability to read minds or be invisible?
Read minds. I think that could take you a long, long way in life. So invisible will be cool, a little short term thing, but I think reading minds could get you some places.
Okay. Which celebrity would you most like to be friends with?
Is there no options? Is that just kind of whoever I want, or
Just
okay?
whoever you want. So again, I'll read the question again. Which
Okay.
celebrity would you most like to be friends with?
So
Open-ended
it's
question.
so it's someone who's alive right now. Then it would have to be. I take it, or
Anybody.
okay. But I say Muhammad Ali. Well, him and Marvin Hagler would be a two-way tie for me. Marvin Hagler, I got the Brockton roots there, so that's a two-way tie.
Okay. I like the way you think.
Hmm.
Ranch or blue cheese?
Neither.
Ooh. What's the most expensive thing you've ever broken?
Most expensive thing I've ever broken. Well, luckily for me, I don't break much. I'd say maybe, I guess a phone probably. I've broken phones before. Not in a while, but I'd say a phone is probably a fair one.
Them shits are expensive these days. If a movie were made about your life, what would be the title?
That's a good one. If a movie was made about my life, what would be the title? That's a good one. If a movie was made about my
Three,
life.
two. All right.
Change. I'll say change would be the name of the title.
Change. Okay.
I had to sneak it in with at the buzzer, so I wanted to give you something.
Can you drive a stick shift?
Yes, actually. I mean, I haven't done it in a while. I've been taught how to do it, so no, I wouldn't. I wouldn't go testing it life or death right now if I needed to. But yeah, I could probably figure it out.
Yeah.
It's been a few years, but I did learn back in the day.
Not driving up any steep hills anytime soon.
Nah, yeah, I'm good on that.
If Hogwarts were to choose you to study there, which house would the sorting hat put you in? The options, I'll go over, are Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, Ravenclaw, or Slytherin.
Man, I got no idea on that one. I'm sorry. I'm an expert in a lot of things. That ain't one of them. So I don't. I couldn't even give you a guess.
All right. Does pineapple belong on pizza?
Hey, to each your own, but not to me. So hey,
The answer is no.
but I ain't mad at someone if they do. So I'll just say that. But it ain't for me.
Okay. If you could get only one thing for free for the rest of your life, what would it be?
One thing for free for the rest of my life. Let me try to think of like a cheap answer, like not a cheap answer, but like a not like a little finesse answer for you. One thing for free for the rest of my life. I'll say stability. It's a weird answer, but I think you're kind of just if I could get stability for free for the rest of my life, however that may fit, I'll go with that.
I see what you did there.
Yeah.
This is the last and most important question, Jack.
Okay.
What is your favorite curse word?
Ah, fuck. It's got to be that, I guess. There we go.
That was the questions that sound about right with Jack the Champ Kelly. Hey, brother, we appreciate you coming on and kicking it this weekend. Thank you for being back at the first part of the Sounds About Right kickoff show, man. Next week we definitely got KC and Nate. They'll be back. We'll be back talking about more football, more things on life. You can always catch me and Jack on Catch and Counter on the ITR page. Jack, man, tell the people what you got going on, bro.
Man, so I got a lot going on. Me and Nibs are doing a lot with ITR boxing. I got a few local shows I'm coming up to that are going to be coming up February 3rd. I'm working with Cordell Booker. I'm going to do a few other things with Francis Hogan, Kevin Walsh, and Chad Leonicello, who are also on that undercard. So I'm really excited for that. And then, we got the main event coming up in a few weeks too at Madison Square Garden. I will be in the building. My guy Abraham Nova is going to fight Oshaki Foster for a WBC title. I will be there on site in the building. We're going to be doing a lot of work. I'm going to be catching up with him again on Saturday. So just doing my thing. Catch us out on Friday nights here at on RTR Boxing. So we're gonna keep doing our thing. But as always, Nibs, I appreciate you having me on. So we do a lot of the boxing talk, but it was cool to dabble into football a little bit. Show you that I know a little thing or two about a thing or two. But man, I appreciate it anytime for sure.
Hey, bro, you're always welcome, bro. You're welcome back anytime. And again, it's been a pleasure.